Hello everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe, people of Earth. Welcome to another build-up, but this is a little different because it's not a complicated out-of-a-box build. This is a Gambody 3D print that I picked up quite a while ago, and I started playing with it off camera. And I've been doing a little bit of traveling, and I have to do a little more traveling. So I thought to myself, let's try to put something up that is memorializing something I wanted to have, but didn't necessarily know whether or not it was a show or not. You know, it was something that anybody would care about. But I think you will. This is Wally. Wally, waste allocation load lifter, Earth type, from the film. 700 years of just being this lonely little robot cleaning up the planet, one garbage sort of pail at a time. And Wally is, when we first meet him, he has one friend, and he's not been painted yet. Here he is. It's a wonderful little cockroach, and there's his friend that I printed up, and this is sort of Wally's life until he meets Eve, another robot that he falls in love with, and the adventure begins. It's a great film, and so I wanted Wally. Now, when I printed Wally and I started looking at it, I thought to myself, we can do a little better, and maybe put it in a little bit of a diorama, have some fun with it. But when I printed Wally out, there were a couple of things that were quite apparent. Now, I've done some work on him, but I'm going to explain to you what I've done. And this is mostly going to be really a paint up and a little bit of construction, but mostly a paint up. But here's his head. And it was a solid block of resin. And what I have done is first of all, I printed this with in G2 Box, and I hollowed it out. And then I dug out some holes for the eyes. And I've added a couple of 3mm yellow warm bulbs. And then I've put some dome-forming resin over those eyeballs, and this is what you get. And so his eyes now light up, and I'll show you that in a short while. But I've run the wires through his head and out the back here, so I've got to clean this up, which I'll do now with some light curing resin. And I've run the wires through the stem of the shaft to his head, and then that is going to drop down into the body here. And what you get with this print is you get his legs, and he comes in several poses. Now, I've just put some basic primers on here just to sort of play with it, but it's in a relatively raw state. So you get a top and bottom, and here that is together. And then you get this. This is the Power Pack crushing unit in the back, and this is where the trash sort of drops out of, and that sits in the back. And here's a trash box that you get. And so this all has to be painted and detailed out. I've just been playing with a little bit of color, but all these boxes were neatly put into walls. And then, of course, he's got his legs. He's got a left and a right, and they slide in. And I've been doing a little bit of cleanup, but I've got a little bit of construction I have to do, and I'll explain that to you in just a second. And then, of course, he's got his arms, and he's got a left arm and a right arm, and we drop those in here. I've been doing, like I said, a little bit of cleanup, so he goes together quite nicely. And they drop in like this. And then the fun thing that I have finished is his boot with his plant in with the plant on it. And I've been finishing that. I got a little bit of detail I want to do still on the on the laces, but I've been working on his boot, and here that is. And he holds his boot in his hand like that. Great fun, absolutely great fun. So so I've done that off camera, but there's plenty to do. Now, when I hollowed this out, one of the things that I noticed that happened, and let me just sort of deconstruct this for you, is one of the things that happened was, and you can actually see it here, is it's splaying out. It's not sitting nice and tightly. And the reason for that is that when I hollowed this out, because I intend to hide the battery pack in here, but when I hollowed this out, what happened was there were I don't know if I can. Well, you can't see it very well. Let me get some light on the subject here. There we go. There was supposed to be a rod that went all the way through. Well, in hollowing it, the rod got removed. So the good news about that was I had plenty of space for my battery. The bad news is that it caused a lack of, as you can see, there's a lack of strength and stability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up some epoxy putty, and I'm going to put that in there so that that can stay permanently. But I won't do it until I've painted these up and detailed them, and they're ready to go in. Because one of the things I have to make sure is that there is enough room for the battery box. Okay. The other fun thing about this little sort of thing here that I'm building is I noticed when I put my eyes in, and here's them's ours. It looked cool, but it didn't have this wonderful frame around it that Wally has. And so what I found was these black washers, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these black washers here, and I'm going to put them over his crowned eyeballs, and I think you'll agree. You'll see what happens when I put them over. It just looks absolutely finished. So I couldn't be happier with that. That was a really great find. And so now really all I've got to do is try to mimic these colors. The only other thing I did was I got a frame grab of his power pack that shows you that he's energized and that he's got enough solar power. And so all I did was I printed that on a transparency there. So that's gonna sit lovingly on his computer panel right here, which I will put right here. Now I'm going to make sure that that's white behind there. I wasn't able to figure out how to get that lit, but I'm happy that I have it, and it's going to be a nice detail to have. So really on this, only his eyes are going to light up. But I think he'll be fine. And I'm very pleased I was able to do a quick frame grab and get that transparency. Great fun. Okay, so step one is, if we go back to this photo, step one is to start sort of working on parts of it and start to build it up. So I'm going to actually work on the legs. We're going to start to get these all detailed out. And so that's the first thing I'm going to do. So we'll set up for that right now. Okay, so I am starting to work on the legs. And I'm just basically dropping in some color here. Just trying to sort of cut everything in and get some base colors, and then start building it up from there. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I'm working on a project like this, where I'm aging something, is I tend to just play with color and just see where it goes and how it feels against my reference photos, because oftentimes I'll go through this process and realize, oh, okay, this is too new looking, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't feel like metal, or it's just the wrong color scheme, and I'll start again. So don't be surprised if during the course of this video I ended up changing some things here and there, and it's hard for me to really explain how to detail and age out things like this. It's kind of trial and error. And it's realizing that in life, nothing looks the same, right? Everything has a different color palette to it, and a different kind of patina. So anyway, that's just my thought process. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this run for a little bit while I paint these out just a little more, and then we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to work on the arms. Since I've got a black undercoat on here, the easiest thing for me to do to replicate the caution bars on his arms is just simply I'm just simply going to mask off my black lines that I want to keep, and then we'll hit the rest of it with a coat of white. So I'm going to do that right now. When you're working in the world of 3D printing, one of the nice things is you do get some pretty cool details that are embedded into your print. As you can see, Wally is pretty banged up and he's got a lot of rust. Now I'm going to be doing a sort of chipping effect on this. So this is going to be the black will be my base color, and then I'm going to put my chipping fluid on here where I can see the various different details, and they were kind enough to really make those stand out for us, as we can see here. You can see they're quite prominent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, in this particular case, I'm actually going to try to use my Humbrol fluid. Fresh off the boat, folks. Very cool. It's just liquid latex. And I've had a lot of my subscribers give me some really cool advice about, latexes and liquids and stuff. There are an awful lot out there. You've got to try and experiment with yours. You can't take what I do as, oh, well, that's the way you do it. You got to try, because your paint surface is going to affect it. What paints you've been using are going to affect it. So do some experimenting on your own, and you'll find something that works for you, and that's a good thing. Okay. So because I know where I need to chip, I'm going to just put my chipping fluid down. It'd be nice if you could see it, wouldn't it? Okay. So I'm just following the contours of where the chipping is on here. And I'm going to go ahead and just put down my fluid here, my masking fluid, and in those areas, and then I'm just going to go ahead and let that dry, let that set up, and then I will hit it with my top coat, and then that will allow us to actually come back and play with this. And of course, you can always use, and we will use, some chipping effect pencils, some markers. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff with this print, and that, again, that's the fun of being able to do something like this, where you can really let your imagination run loose. Okay, so you get the idea. The chipping fluid is going down. It's not as viscous as I thought it would be, but that's okay. And we're just going to go ahead and lay this down. And then we're going to come back and put our top coat on here, and then we'll remove this. Layering paint is the name of the game when you're aging, and sometimes it's harder to age things than it is to make things look new. But I like the challenge and I love the fun of it. What I'm doing now is I'm just adding layers and layers of color. So you'll start with something and then a gray or a silver and add more and more to it until you get it to where you want it. I'm working on the the hands now. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm trying to create some shadows and some battle damage. I mean, he you know, he's an interesting character, and he's probably had to defend himself more than once or twice. We don't really know. This is a little bit of green that I'm going in hard with, and I'm deliberately making it splatter. Because I'll come back later and blend it, but I'm just trying to add a little bit of aging and some interest. So some parts are harder than others, but I deliberately make it splatter, and then you add this wonderful shadowing effect. So that's what I'm working on now, and these colors, you know, it's sort of, if you think about it, from the storms and the rain and the dust and the dirt. So there's a lot of layering that has to go on here to get this just right. But it's an awful lot of fun just to kind of come in here and play with this. And sometimes I get a little, I'll get a little heavy deliberately, and then we'll come back and we'll put something else on. But that's what this is about. It's about getting sort of grime and layers of dirt and dust on this. I have to tell you, I'm having a blast because it's just layer over layer over layer, and then obviously finally we'll do very detailed cleanup of everything, and we'll do some washes. I've got some washes out, but that'll be after we get a good sealer on this to make sure that we don't lose anything. But just memorializing the work. I'm very happy with Wally. He's starting to look quite aged. Vallejo and other companies make all kinds of different colored rusts. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just sort of going in and I'm adding some base color to the rusted areas, and then we'll continue to pick at it. Now, once I have gotten this to where I want it, I am going to move to oils, and I'm gonna, but I won't do that until this has gotten a complete gloss coat, because it will be just so much easier for me to work with the oils once we've got the gloss coat on. But we can add all kinds of gunk and wonderful stuff. But this is a really nice base coat, and then we'll do some chipping effects with some markers. I've got some wonderful markers that I love to use, and I think I may have showed you those. I picked these up at Telford last year. I wanted to get them here, but unfortunately the complete set was very difficult to find in the States. So when I found it at Telford, I was thrilled, and I picked it up. I grabbed it. And I'm glad I did. If you can find the markers, they're well worth having in your stash. But this is going really well. And again, you know, thanks to the fact that the print itself has this wonderful, this sort of wonderful details in it, we're able to sort of use the contours of the scratches and the detail that was actually put in the print as our guide, and that's very helpful, very helpful. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just sort of carefully going in there, and some of it is going to need to be, you know, a lot more. It's gonna take a lot more detail, and we'll start to work on that with our scratching and our chips and all kinds of stuff like that. But I wanted to show you just sort of the basics of what I'm doing. Decision-making time. I'm obviously still not even close in terms of my weathering and all my detail work. but I've got to make a decision here. Nothing is glued in yet, but it's all where it wants to be. Still a lot of work to do to get the details dialed in. I'm relatively happy with his head. I've got to put his lenses on, his final lenses. They'll go on, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of smoke, just to kind of diffuse a little bit. But the interesting thing is that the hole that I drilled into his head and the optical, the top of the LED has created a wonderful iris. So that I couldn't be happier with. But here's what I'm working on. Okay, so what I've been doing is, and I'm going to take this off just so that we can look at it, I have been protecting the area here that is supposed to be his screen. I haven't gotten any gunk on that. As we know, I've got this solar charging level little transparency that goes right here. Now I could paint this white and just put that on, or I can actually cut this out and try to create a little light box here to get that lit up. I'm right on the fence for a bunch of reasons. If I can tip it over and get some light on the subject. Let me light this up so that we can see what I'm talking about. So when I printed this, I hollowed it out. And when I hollowed it out, there is a, on both sides, very difficult to see, but it's gone now. There was a structural element that allowed these legs to lock in. Well, that's gone. And so what I'm left with is legs that have the wobbles. They're just, you can see here, this one here. So I am going to mix up some epoxy sculpt, and I'm going to pack it in there and lock these in, and that'll take care of that. And if I cut into here, then I've got to drill into the top of this because it's in a different section. Now, if I'm going to do it, now's the time to do it. So I'm like I said, I'm on the fence because when I cut into this, I'm then going to have to take a drill bit and get in here, and then I'm going to have to frame that out. But the net result is that transparency will come alive. I mean, it'll light up. But if that area is just plain white and I put the transparency over it, because it's clear yellow, I wonder if that's going to be sufficient. I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking it will be. I'm thinking that a light behind this might be just too much, and it won't give me anything. It's not going to give me what I think I want out of it. So I think I've just made a decision with you. I'm going to paint that backdrop white because I think the white will be a lot punchier than the gray, just to give me some punch. So I'm going to get that white, and then I'm gonna pack the legs with epoxy sculpt, and then we'll continue on with chipping and weathering. I've got his boot all ready to go. That's just going to need. I'm just going to need a little bit of work on the laces here, which I'm going to do, and I'll do that with some markers. But I'm very happy with that, so that's good to go. And then the only other thing we'll work on is his junk pile. It's just got some very rough, detail on it at the moment. I'm going to hit this, I think, with some white now. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start picking this out with different kinds of colors, and we'll put Wally on his stand when he's finished. Now, what I've got from Keith over at Cosmic Scale Models, I'll give you all the information, is he sent me a bunch of different interesting acrylic stands. He is He's a really good guy. And his shop, if you don't know who Cosmic Scale Models is, you need to know. So let me show you his card here. There's all the information you need about Cosmic Scale Models. This is Keith in the UK. His shop is fantastic. Go check him out. But what I love is he's got all these display bases. Now you can get these with boxes, or you can get them just as acrylic sheets and do whatever you want with them. But there's a couple of wonderful ones. Now these are still in their bags. But let's take a look. Look, here is Starfield. That's just a Starfield. That one, now these are medium. You can get them in small. There isn't a larger size at the moment that I'm aware of. There's Starfield 4 and here's Starfield 1, which is a nebula. Very cool. He has also sent me, if you ever do the War of the Worlds Martian that I did, look at this. How beautiful is that? And that would look gorgeous lit up. And I can see a Martian, or I might save this for the Martian machine. I'm going to build the war machine at some point. I've always wanted one. And of course, here is the classic Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It doesn't get any better than that. And that is just beautiful. I mean, the depth that you get on that. So really some fun acrylic bases. So big hats off to Keith. Thank you, Keith. We're going to definitely have some fun with those. Okay, so let me get Wally's solar charging panel painted up white and get some epoxy sculpt on these on these legs, so that's all locked in place, and then we can carry on with our weathering. Okay, minor setback, but I think it's important to share. The legs for Wally, the support leg that goes to the strut inside that we talked about earlier, that I wanted to put that epoxy putty around, I snapped them. And that was in the test fitting process. Now, it's a good lesson learned, because there's a couple of things you got to remember. One is that resin can be brittle. So whenever you've got a joint like this, I should have thought a little harder about how to make sure that I didn't put stress on something that could potentially snap. Now, I've done a nice job of putting this epoxy putty inside. That's gone off rock solid. So that's not going anywhere. So that's good. But the net result is, of course, is that I've got to reprint these, because I'm not going to try and repair them. So that's what I'm doing now. But in trying to do that, I realized a couple of things. And one is that in approaching my painting process, I didn't like it. Wasn't happy with it. I wasn't happy with the way it was, the way it was aging and rusting. I've been working on the process, and I'm much happier with what I'm doing here. This is the continuing sort of weathering down of Wally's body, which has taken a beating over the years. But one of the things I'm doing is building up the rust layers, and I'm having a tremendous amount of success with the game color, the Vallejo 7.2 here. Let me show you this up close. This is the Vallejo Orange Fire 7.2.008. And I hadn't seen this before. Now, I don't know if this is new packaging, but this just arrived at my local hobby shop, and I'm grateful. My local hobby shop, Glenn, over at Burbank House of Hobbies, has a wonderful selection of paint. So I was thrilled to see this. And I had picked this up earlier, interestingly enough, from my Admiral Ball, my Lucille Ball sculpt, for potentially mixing her hair. But I realized that ultimately it's a great rust color. And in looking at some of the production stills, I realized that would work, especially under the edges where it really could get hit. So I'm very happy with that. I didn't overdo it, but I've gotten a good result. So I just wanted to update you on that. I'm printing new legs now, and while I'm printing new legs, I'm continuing to work on the aging and rusting process. And then I'll also start doing a little bit of work on the crushed. Here's the crushed bundle of garbage that, you know, he crushes, he lifts up, he crushes, and then he spits it out. So this all has to be detailed out. You got some black piping, we've got some metal steel rods, we've got all kinds of trash and garbage in here for me to detail out. So I'm going to start working on that while I'm waiting. And I'm also going to get a primer coat on my cockroach. And what I don't have is his little antennae. So I'm gonna add those with some very fine wire, and I'll do that just at the end. I'll add that in, so because they're going to be vulnerable to snap. But he's good. He's fun. He's very cockroachy. He just doesn't have his long little antennae that we see and we're used to seeing in the film. So we'll work on that. Okay. So back at it. I'm printing. And then I'll start weathering and aging those down. But I've had a process I'm going to use that I'll share with you that is going to be a slightly different approach, but I think it's going to work really well. So we'll take a look at that next. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I inadvertently had snapped my support arm for the leg, and it gave me an opportunity to think to myself, I thought, I don't like the way I was approaching this, so I'm going to try something a little different. Now, I've used this product before on my channel with great success. I absolutely love it, so I just wanted to share it with you. It is from Modern Masters is the name of the company. It's Metal Effects. And you start with a primer. Here's the primer. Okay? And then after you've used the primer, and that's dried, you apply a couple of coats of your oxidizing paint. And here's them's is. Those is. And then when that is dry, you apply your activator. There's your activator. And you do that a couple of spritzes. And you get a pretty great effect. And we'll share. So step one is to get the actual base coat or the primer coat on, and I'm just going to use a sort of a disposable brush here. But the idea is just to give this a really good coat of whatever it is you're rusting out, right? And then we can paint over this, and we can control the actual amount of rustage we want. So just because you're putting your primer over everything, it does not mean that you can, or you're forced into rusting everything. You don't have to, but you'll see we can actually pick and choose what we want to rust. And then not only can we pick and choose what we want to rust, we can also clean up any area we don't want to be heavily rusted, just by simply applying less of the actual oxidizing iron paint. Okay, time to put on the oxidizing iron paint. Use a disposable brush and just get it on. Now, don't worry about making sure you cover every nook and cranny. That's not the idea. The idea here is to just hit your places that you know are going to get good visibility, and play with those a little bit. Get it on nice and thick. Get it on your I get it on the treads here, because it gives you a very nice texture. It doesn't not everything gets the same kind of treatment, if that makes sense. You'll get some high spots, you'll get some low spots, but you definitely want to do as much of it as you can. And the nice thing about it is where you've missed it or where you don't get it on, you've got that lovely brown patina. So that makes a lot of sense. So we'll get it on the treads here. And the reason why you want to only use the areas that you've painted your brown primer on is because that primer has a very unique property, and I don't know the chemistry of it, but it will protect your surface from the acid etching that happens with the chemical reaction. So now this is on the inside and you'll never see it, but I think to do a nice job, I think it's worth hitting as much of it as you can. Okay, work continues, and we're getting this lovely patinaing effect. I'm going to try and get you a little closer here so you can see it's still activating, because you can see it's still wet. But what I wanted you to see that is most important here is this wonderful effect. I'm going to point it out but you can see what's happening here as the wheel right here starts to get this wonderful yellowing and matting effect. I mean, it's really quite dramatic. And what I like to do while it is still wet, now, you know, this is just something I've sort of been playing with, but what I like to do is get my dry brush, and I like to come in and I like to just start dry brushing just little bits of the tips. I don't want to do it all, and I don't want to go crazy, but I just like to just kiss it a little bit. And what you'll see is it starts to really pop the effect. And one of the things one of my secrets that I like to play with is, well, things are still wet or still drying, because you can really have some fun with it. And I'm gonna do a little bit here in the axle, not too much, because we're not going to see an awful lot, but just enough that you'll get some highlights. And that's all I'm looking for is just some highlights. And so we'll continue to let this set up and continue to rust a little more, because it's doing that quite well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my other rusting effects and gouges and sort of gunge this up a little more. But I think this is a much more honest. Originally, before I'd used the rubber black, I'd used matte black, and I was wrong. For me personally, I was wrong. I didn't like where it was going. And so I think this is a much more realistic and sort of honest approach, and I'll continue to do some touching up with it, but I think we've got a winner here, and so, you know, a happy accident out of a mistake, which is a big part of the hobby, right? Is learning and figuring it out, and mistakes are happy accidents, as Bob Ross used to say. You know, don't get upset, don't get frustrated, just take it as a learning experience and continue on. Okay, great fun. I am still printing my other wheel. I've got about another hour on that. For you, it'll be the next segment, but I'll have all these done, and I will have cleaned them up, detailed them out, and I'll have them installed on Wally. I'm working on his garbage here, and that's coming along quite nicely. And I will now start to get just a little bit of color on the cockroach, and we'll play with that a little bit. But things are progressing quite nicely. And here is the result of the rusting effect from the iron paint. Very good. And I'm super happy with it. So the detail is extraordinary and the realism is amazing. And all I've got to do now, this one has just a light finishing coat on it of my Comart light dust, which I've been using. And so this one is completely finished, and I've got some little details that I've got to punch in there. And this one just doesn't have a dusting of the light dust yet, so I'll get that on. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of picking up of just a little bit of highlights on these cogwheels, and these will be done. So then we can finally put Wally together and see what else he's going to need. We are getting dangerously close. Very happy with that. I mean, it's a fun effect, and I really now, you know, let me just be honest, so that you all don't go yelling at me when you go checking for this stuff on Amazon. It is not cheap. I think the whole kit is going to cost you about $100. Now, don't go screaming at me. You don't have to use it. There's a million other ways you can create rust effects. You do not have to use this. I just happen to have it in my kit because I've used a lot of it. Now, it goes a long way, so you'll have it forever. And if you can afford it and you can grab it, I would pick it up. You'll be glad you did. But if you can't, that's perfectly okay. Just don't complain. Because I don't want you to run out and have to buy it. I just want you to know it's out there. Okay, let's carry on. I want to get this finished. Okay, we're going to put his solar panel on here with a little bit of microcrystal clear. And we'll just see that transparency like that. Good, and with the white behind it, he's nice and punchy, so I'm glad I chose not to light that, because there's just no need. So there he is. We'll stick his arm in there one more time. You can see. I'm going to leave these unglued so that I can transport this. But let me get the light on for you. His eyes light up. Now, I know these are cameras, they're not lights. It's been pointed out to me by somebody whose name will remain nameless. Unless you're going to go to Cult TV Man and buy as many of his masks as you possibly can, then I'll give you his name. Otherwise, I will not. There he is. I'm going to continue to detail this. I've got some AK Interactive chipping pencils. I'm going to put some more scratches on here, and I'm just going to keep playing with it just for about half an hour. I'm going to give myself half an hour, and then I'm going to call it, because it's so much fun just to keep going. But no, I think we've got a very nice result. A very nice result. It's a reasonably decent Wally. I've got a little bit of touch up to do on the cabling where his lights come down, and I can see I've got a little light leak that I'm going to have to deal with. Little things, but that's okay. That's what it's all about. Okay, we're going to find something to put him on. I think it's just going to be like a piece of acrylic that we'll age up, and then we can just put the elements on it. Oh, and I've got my cockroach, which I have painted. His cockroach buddy has been lovingly painted with a color shifting, my Vallejo color shift paints. Love those. Trying to remember. Oh, here it is. I used Old Silver Pale Violet, because I think cockroaches, since they're going to last for millions of years. So what I'm going to do now is find a couple of wires for his antennae, and then I'll clip him off of his of his support from the print, and then he'll be ready to go. Okay, we should be ready for some beauty shots and some final thoughts coming up. So once in a while, inspiration comes from very strange places. Recently, we had an opportunity to take another look at WALL-E, and I just fell in love with the film again and thought, I think I'd like a WALL-E on the shelves. I completely switched gears on myself, and I went ahead and printed this out. This is a print that's available from Game Body, and there you get three different poses you can have. You can either have the WALL-E holding the boot plant. You can have WALL-E just with his arms open, or you can have WALL-E with his arms just straight in, whatever you prefer. Obviously, I went for all the bells and whistles, and I'm glad I did. Now, I did put some blue lights in the. They ended up being blue in his for his eyes, and I did that because I wanted them to have a little life, even though I know they're camera lenses. But camera lenses can have a little life. Why not? He's got his plant in his hand. He's got a crushed up cube ready to put back on a pile. And there's just a little bit of junk I put next to him. He's sitting on a piece of acrylic that I laid down just some balsa wood, and I've painted that up just to sort of indicate a ramp or a place that he is. But there it is. So let's go ahead and take a look at some beauty shots. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. And especially happy with my cockroach. One of his buddies, his only buddy, of course, here lovingly created in 3D. And I added some very tiny wires to represent his antennae. Obviously, he's holding his plant boot, and he's got his pile of junk in front of him. So there you go. There is WALL-E. I hope you enjoyed this rather quick build. I mean, it was more paint than anything else, but it was a lot of fun for me to age him down. Hey, don't forget, I don't know at what point in the future you'll end up finding WALL-E, but April 24th on the World of Wayne is the reveal of the Sprueverse Challenge. Oh, yes. We're kit bashing this year. It should be a lot of fun. Hey, if you want to get a hold of me, I'm sprueverse@gmail.com. I post most days my in the weeds, what's on the bench photos, and that's at Sprueverse. Buy me a cup of coffee if you want to. That link is on my channel page. It's for my charitable builds. But hey, as always, please, I wish all of you be safe, be well, build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Be well.